good morning, bom dia a todos. I'm very impressed, I have to say, to see so many people in this room after last night's enjoyment. And also, I have to say that a lot of you are in the wrong business because you done so well. You know, just think of your career again. Anyhow, thank you very much for being here once again. We'll be talking about global wholesale telco industry in the digital transformation era, so a full mouth. Introduce myself first, if I may. Elizabeth Simao. I'm a partner at Cambridge Management Consulting and head of career relations at the Career Club. I'll be moderating this session today. Thank you, Career community, for the opportunity. So I'll turn to the esteemed panelists and ask them to introduce themselves, just like I did yesterday. Ladies first.
Okay, thank you. My name is Marlene Sentey. I work for CV Telecom. I'm the head of department for operator relation. I deal with everything that has to do with wholesale in terms of voice, SMS, voice interconnection, capacity, and data center services. I've been in the industry for the past 25 years, so I've seen a lot of transformation going on. And yes, I'm looking forward to being this panel and discuss with my colleagues in here. Thank you. Alex.
Thank you. Obrigado. Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Vavilov, Market Manager Africa at Lang Telecom. I'm with Lang for 13 years already. And when I joined, people were saying that voice is dying, but actually it's not. There are different trends, but for our company, we managed to get more volumes. So there are different streams. And yeah, I'm passionate about Africa, cultural-wise, music-wise, and of course, telecom-wise. So excited for the discussions we'll have today.
Thank you. My name is Fabio Jose, head of sales for Angola Cables. 10 over 12 years in the industry, although I feel like I'm the youngest here, so that's good. Responsible for Africa and CPLP countries, so basically around the Central Africa, a little bit of the SADC, and as well as the Congos and the Portuguese-speaking countries. We at Angola Cables started with a very linear connectivity point-to-point. We've now diversified our portfolio, and so transformation is in our DNA. Okay. So looking forward to learning with the panels and with everybody else.
Bom dia, muito obrigado, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure for us being here. For me, I'm Javier Mariscal, Senior Director for Africa and Middle East in BTS. Although I'm probably the older here, it's only 18 years in the industry, but 30 years in Africa, trying to find a way to add value and discovering how to better in the life of the people. Now it's on telecommunications, but I'm pretty sure that the industry is driving us to farther horizons, and we're finding the way to keep adding value to you guys. It's a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you very much. So digital transformation, we've all heard about it. It's on the lips of everyone, certainly in the telecom sector, and us at Cambridge Management Consulting, we help our customers through the journey of that digital transformation, and we understand the pain and the good things out of that. So in the telecom sector, this is not new. It has been ongoing, certainly in the continent of Africa since 2019, with a number of initiatives. The World Bank Group has launched the Digital Economy for Africa. They've also launched the African Union's Digital Transformation Strategy 2020-2030. Some of those objectives of these initiatives are to close the digital infrastructure and connectivity gaps, and to create a digital ecosystem. And some of the results have been reported to be positive, seeing improved access to affordable and higher quality of connectivity. And we've also seen improved regulatory framework and environment to foster competition and investment. So having said that, what do you see where the continent, or what stage is the continent into the digital transformation journey compared to other regions in the world?
So, yep. Yeah, well, I mean, many things we can say about that. I guess many African countries are different, right? They have some similarities, but we cannot say that all is like all the trends are the same. I mean, just pure facts that that's the youngest continent. The average age is 18, 19, 18. So it's, I mean, and some of the fastest growing population-wise and economy-wise countries are in Africa, right? So many trends will be definitely in that sphere. I mean, fintech is growing super fast. I guess now more in the Western Africa, and well, I would say on the positive side is that sometimes it's easier to implement new solutions instead of modernizing the older ones, right? So that goes for infrastructure, for solutions like cybersecurity or other ones. So it's instead of getting modernizing what was there, it's easier to build from scratch, which I think is very an important part of the story.
Well, if I may, I think the first thing is that, to me at least, Africa is not a country. So, as you said, Alex, I think that there are quite different, the evolution is quite different in between countries. But I have to say, as I mentioned to you before, I have a very optimistic vision about the situation. I just came the very first time I've been in Africa, it was in 1994. There were no mail. And so if you take these days and nowadays, there is an evolution with very tough conditions in general in all the countries. I think that the job is been very hard, but very well done. I mean, the connectivity, the access has improved a lot. But of course, there are some odds that we need to readdress. I think that the issue, in my opinion, unless I have this optimistic vision, is that probably the needs of the people, whenever it comes about digitalization, are the same in any part of the world. But the conditions, the finance, the infrastructure is not the same. So probably keeping this optimistic vision, I think that it's more an effort from certain companies, certain multilateral organizations that we need to put a bit more efforts in terms of financement to bettering the conditions. But again, if you compare ourselves 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there is a massive evolution and we're on the correct path in general.
Okay. I would like to also agree with what Javier was saying. Yes, for the past, we've seen from the past 10 to 15 years, a lot of things has changed. I can talk a little bit about Cape Verde, that is my experience, but I see in the west coast of Africa, connectivity has been a major change because in the rural areas, there is a lot of people that have no access to water, electricity, but connectivity right now is an essential thing. It's something that they have access. In Cape Verde, we are always looking forward to the rural areas. We are trying to bring connectivity to the main cities and also to the people that live outside the main cities, because connectivity right now, it's the basic. And because in here we have a lot of young people and they are really, they're really needed for technology. So connectivity and being able to bring everybody in the same level of available connectivity in a country, it's something that we all are working, and we hope that very soon in Cabo Verde we'll be able to bring top-of-the-art connectivity. So the trend is bringing new technology to everywhere and on the same level as you have in the main cities on the rural area also. It's a challenge because of the condition that we have there, but we believe that with an effort of everybody, and we will be able to reach everyone.
Yeah. So I thank you for these points. I've listened attentively. I think I may be the only one, being younger, that I have a slight different view in terms of the evolution. It's positive nonetheless, but from what I can tell is that there are now more different stakeholders involved in the digitalization process. So from my experience, at least from Angola and the SADC region, we now see a more active of participation of other stakeholders into the digitalization process. So, for example, a few years ago, many years ago, to conceive utilize a IPGW or rail the train fiber to connect to enable telecommunications at the long haul, which in the African continent is very expensive. That was something that wasn't part of the process. Okay, so the telecommunication part to enable the digitalization was mostly done through the telco parties or the telco stakeholders. Now, the fact that there is now involvement from additional stakeholders and financing from additional parties, that's where I think the change we really see in the continent. Reason being because we can all speak about digitalization and everything else, but we need the supporting infrastructure as well to assist in that aspect. And in Africa, taking infrastructure from the central points or the focal cities into the rural cities, that's the main challenge. Some countries have been ravaged by war. The other ones simply have so many kilometers in terms of extensions that it becomes sometimes financially inviable to invest in large bandwidth or large capabilities of communication to assist digitalization. So the technology enabled that. I see examples everywhere whereby the satellite part has played a role. The development of additional technology and the sort of democratization of microwave technology across the continent also played a big role. So that's where I think the big change came, is the fact that additional stakeholders are assisting the telco companies into the digitalization process.
I think that there is a substantial change on the ecosystem that applies also for legal conditions. Before, the recent evolution was made out of the investors, like you said, Fabio, and like Marlene was saying, there is a huge investment. But now we have also, my vision is that we have to understand that most of the MNOs making these investments are not taking, that most of these investments are not worthy anymore. So that is creating, in my humble opinion, an issue for the development of future investment in infrastructure. And what I'm saying is that probably we need to readdress the legal ecosystem, the legal framework, and ask some of the big OTT giants also to get involved into this infrastructure investment, or at least to participate in open, a frank and an open discussion in the region, in the world anyway, to see whether if we can readdress the legal conditions, because we can't let the MNOs make all the infrastructure investment, because they are companies. Probably Marlene needs to defend some results to the board. And whoever is taking advantage today of these infrastructures made by the operators are not the operators. So probably we need to think out of the box a bit about the legal framework and try to involve the big giants, the OTTs, into this conversation.
Right. So since you're talking about investments, and I'm jumping here a bit in terms of the themes that we had lined up, do you see that the investments opportunities are aligned with business strategies? I think you touched a little bit on that. What are your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, well, my area of expertise is in voice, and I can say that obviously investment is crucial, right, as was discussed today. I think that, for example, if we look at cybersecurity, many of the operators, like a huge amount of international volumes is getting passed as local, right, the international refining, and that might bring really huge revenues, which might help the investments. So plus it's it's a constant process, right? It's we always need to be one step ahead. So it's not just to install something, that's it. It's always like being one step ahead. But I think that apart from looking for new investment sources, new revenue sources, it might be the other way around, just finding what is already there, which is not getting monetized.
Yeah, if I may add, I to answer the question, to begin answering, I believe now the investments are more coordinated. We can see how the examples that we see in our country, going all the way from the Lubito corridor to connect the Angola part, the central and the west coast, going to the east coast, and to connect countries like DRC, Zambia, Tanzania, and so on. Because there's been investments on the other sides in terms of harbors and other main logistical bases. So we are now seeing a more consolidated effort in terms of this investment. The other thing that we've all noticed is the influx of data center investment in the continent. I don't know how many people I've spoken to from different countries and different companies across the world wanting to find out what are the investments opportunities for infrastructure associated to that. We also see in Angola a big, massive investment in the energy field, not the traditional energy, but we're talking about green energies. And so that investment is being there and associated to transform things at the digital. The challenge I think from the African perspective, sometimes we have to be as proud Africans as we are, but we also need to be realistic that some things lagged behind for so long that it gets to a point that everything becomes urgent. So the question is not just about the amount of investments, it's the prioritization of the investment. Okay, what I'm going to do first, what I'm going to do next, in order for me to have a clear path in terms of return on investment and really optimization, utilization of this investment. That, in my opinion, is one of the biggest challenges because so many things lag behind. And so what do you do first? Do you invest on a power grid or do you invest on the road? Perhaps you are not able to do both things at the same time. So you have to compromise, and that's where the challenge is. The other thing I believe is that at least a good chunk of African countries, at least in our region, have been politically stable enough to be accommodating for investment opportunities. Now, are the investment laws and benefits and incentives the same ones as the regions where most of the investors come from? No, but it goes back to what I said before. We need to prioritize what needs to come first. And so usually governments give more incentives to critical infrastructure than other types of investments that are also necessary. So it's a fine balancing act.
I completely agree with Fabio in terms of prioritizing the investments, because here we see that sometimes what is needed, the market needs, in terms of technology, we see that it's going sky high. Right now, we have 5G, but here most of the African countries, they still have 2G. It's a legacy technology. And right now, we have this need of being able to have the new technology in the country, because here, an example, we have a lot of inbound homers. People can come with the highest technology, iPhone with no SIM card, physical SIM card. So we have to accommodate this new technology, even though our market is not really ready for it. We have voice change to voice over LTE, it's voice over data. We don't have any traditional voice anymore. It's an investment that we have to do. So sometimes we are not able to keep track of all of these technology changes. And as Fabio said, we have to prioritize. Right now, we have to lower our OPEX. We have to invest in renewable technology, power system in order to reduce the consumption of our electricity and be able to prioritize the investment in a new technology, because it is something that's happening so fast, and sometimes we lag behind so many years. Like we have an examples right now of when 4G was launched in 2013, 14, and it came to Cape Verde in 2019. So sometimes and 5G is now everywhere in Europe. And to come to Cape Verde is something that is going to require a huge investment. And the return probably is not as fast as we would like. And we have to do network sunsetting, because the technology, we cannot have a lot of technology in at the same time. Our operational team will struggle, because it's something that we have to keep on going. Voice is not dying, as Alex saying. And SMS is something that we thought was dead, is coming again because of the application to person SMS. So there is a lot of things that are changing that as operator, we need to keep track. We need to prioritize our investment. We need to look into the regulation in a country. There's so many things that we have to check every day to be able to construct a good business deal, a business case for all the investment that we need to do on our everyday business deal. So.
I think that we should consider two things here. Totally agree with you on the prioritization of the investments, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this was a different business. The returns of any investment was pretty much clear and fast. But we have to admit that communication has become a commodity. It's not anymore an added value like before. And we should consider that any investment in commodity should take every single year more and more and more and more time. So I think that this is the problem right now, is whenever we appreciate that we need some investments, but who's going to make that investment? Years ago, it was very easy. You can amortize a cable investment in 5 years. Not anymore. And we still need, as you said, Marlene, these investments, because the times are changing. The demands of the customers are changing. But now the point is that this business has become a commodity business, creating important risk whenever it comes about the return. So coming back to the point, I think that no company make any investment if they're not sure they're gonna make any return. But it's getting tough. And that is somehow delaying the amount of investments that we're receiving, particularly in Africa. And in this case, we can talk about a global issue in Africa. It's taking more and more time taking returns from the investments, because this business has become a commodity business. So that is the challenge. I think that the market is going, as you said, Alex, faster and faster, and we'll figure it out. But probably we need to readdress the ecosystem. And sorry to come back to the previous statement, but I think that we have to include some of the operators that are taking the return from the MNO's investment and discuss whether if we can create a new ecosystem in Africa, particularly in Africa.
It's interesting what you're saying, because what I hear from all of you is really the adoption of new technologies and smart platforms is being imposed. So it's not a trend, it is a need that is being imposed, and you have to somehow adopt and adapt to the new challenges that are coming through. And so what do you see the future, if I may say, in 5 or 10 years? Maybe 10 years, it might be a long time in such a dynamic environment, but looking in the crystal ball, 5 years time, what do you see?
So at least from my perspective, there are two things that are going to impact the future in terms of the digitalization process. So the first one is looking internally into organizations such as ours, the service providers, that we need to quickly automate as many processes and as many operations as possible. Automation is no longer a buzzword or something like that. It is a, if I can use the crude term, it is a money saving philosophy that will allow us to then save time, money, and invest into the other part of the service. So there's the automation that happens inside the organizations, the telecom organizations, and that is so very demanding because, as you said, some of the big players as well. Yeah, we have services and platforms, for example, that it's impossible for our technicians to reach somebody. You have to go into a portal, select features and everything else. It's all very automated. But not every organization is at the same level there. So once we stabilize, at least it's as if we have to all speak a very common language, which is the automation language, in terms of processes, communication, exchange of information internally. And then the other part is looking towards our customer bases and how we quickly deploy these services. So we need to make sure that we can, number one, accommodate as many customers as possible within the challenges, because these many customers are very unique and different profiles. Okay, so that standardization is what we strive for, but is very difficult for us to achieve because of the different profiles of the customers. Okay, but if we can find a way to automate that process as well within our customers, because fortunately our customers are becoming smarter, more intelligent, more technology prone, more technology savvy. That may enable us to provide additional services on top of services, bundles that make sense and add real value to people's lives. So we're talking about having communication packs that includes the SMSs for financial transactions, or the notifications beyond IP, beyond the internet, things like that. And even the part of the citizen and the government and the citizen and the other support institutions, healthcare, education, and everything else. Once we stabilize that, in my opinion, we will have a more consolidated future. So automation, both inside the organization and towards our customers, to me is something that needs to be looked at it very strategically, and that's where the future is headed.
I completely agree with Fabio. Automatization is the key word for the future. It's not only inside but outside. Our market trends, what our customer needs sometimes is not one size fits all. We need to really address our customer by whatever they need. And if you're not able to automatize this, the way we approach them is going to be really a big issue. And I believe in 5-10 years, people are going to be more technology. They're going to use technology for everything. And in nowadays, we see that e-governments and fintechs are something that is like used in our everyday life. We don't want to do anything going to a bank or going to a government institution. You wanted to sit at your office or at your house and do everything. So that's going to be a commodity that everyone is going to demand. So in 5 to 10 years, probably we'll have even more need for this. So I believe that we all have to use AIs to be able to predict, to speed up the way we interact with our customers. The customer journey today is something that probably is not going to be the one that will happen in 5-10 years. I want to sit at home and do whatever I have to do at the comfort of my house or in my office without having to go anywhere. I want to pay my bills. I want to change my SIM card, or I want to do payments, mobile payments. Mobile is in Africa at least, is a device that is mostly used to communicate over the internet. So it's something that we really have to bet on that. We have to put more service and more on top of the device, because it's something that it's being used in a massive way. So I believe technology is going to be automation, and in technology in the next 5 to 10 years is a key word for us to be able to accomplish our goals. Alex?
Yeah, well, yeah, artificial intelligence is it's the buzzword, but yet it goes along with cybersecurity, right? Because it needs to be like if a few years ago my phone got stolen in South Africa, and but South Africa is still one of my favorite countries, and only then I realized like how much of that digital identity is in the smartphone. It's literally everything is there, right? And if we look at the person at the end subscriber at the end of the day, I think well a few trends easy is definitely, I think there will be more and more affordable smartphones, right? And traveling around Africa, many times I saw people having 3, even 4 mobile phones, right? For data, for this network, for that network. So that will be definitely simplified. Fintech, I'm sure that I mean, in Eastern Africa, there is more mobile banks already, right? But I think in Western Africa, that's the place to be. Our company is not doing fintech. I think that's the ideal place for that in Western Africa. And some of the mobile banks are much more convenient than real banks, right? So I think that could be a big trend. But the other thing I also wanted to add is that it should be sustainable, because what I see from the voice perspective is that when the revenues there is inflated SMS traffic, when the rates for SMS go up, in the short term, everyone is happy, but that's not sustainable, and enterprises look for alternative channels. And I think that's, that's one of the reasons why we see more traffic increase on the voice side. But I think that sustainable aspect is what we all industries should think about and discuss, because it's, I think that's apart from all the technology and the other stuff and the investment. I'm not that good at the cables. It's interesting to hear what you were discussing, but yeah, I mean, the new technologies and the new approaches, I think, is also a vital thing.
Well, I think that as we're talking, the automation is a must. It's not an option. If we were talking before that this is a commodity business, we need to save costs, and the only way is automatization. I mean, it's just a must. And if I see the industry not in 10 years, but in 5 years, I see substantial changes, less people working in this industry, for more investments in automatization. That's something that probably we need to think about, because the reality is that the market is demanding more cost efficiency, and we have an important discussion or further discussion in many African countries, because on the other side, we want to invest in training and education for our young people, but we need to secure an ecosystem where they can develop themselves in the future. That's in the very short term. And I agree that if I look at the communications in general, I might see like communications like electricity. So we will be demanding communication and connectivity, like we turn on the light, and we don't expect that the hotel doesn't offer for free the communication. But 5 years ago, you have to pay a voucher for internet. So this is the evolution in the very short term, I think.
So keywords that I'm hearing is automation, sustainability, but also customization, because you talked about customization. So how does that go with automation? Because when you automate, it's sort of like it's a pattern, so it's the same for everyone. So how can you customize something that you want to automate to get to cost-effective options?
I may. I think that both things can work together. I mean, there is no gap in between automation and customization, because at the end of the day, you're preparing the automatization based on your or your customers' needs. So we might be creating different profiles that will be served automatically by the systems. I think that and this is something that we can celebrate, because years ago they were against customization with automation, were against each other. But today they're working together, and they're advancing together. Probably we need to take care of our customers much more than before, much more, and add real value. But I think that both parts are working together, and I don't see that big gap in between.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. We see that automation will facilitate the customization because instead of me, for example, me as the service provider, having to manually tailor a specific offer to ISP A or Enterprise B, the platform can then streamline everything that it's in common between my multiple services that I provide, and then package everything together and deliver it in a very efficient way. I mean, if you look at the way we buy services now, there's the element of customization, automation. Quick examples. Whenever we do order, for example, services, whether it's ride sharing services or food delivery services, the automation is in the process of the order, but the customization is within the client's order, these preferences. So we see this happen more often and often. Quick example, streaming services, okay? Where we are seeing more and more a push towards local created content, right? And local created content has a different appeal within streaming services. So what streaming services are doing is that as they are either they've automated the process in which they deliver the content, but we are able now to adjust your preferences. You say you want to see more of this, you want to see more of that. And gradually with AI and other features, other algorithms, they create a custom profile that is automated in terms of your preferences, but it's customized to you. My Netflix profile is completely different than my wife's. She likes soap operas. I like sports documentaries. All right? No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm trying to see less of that. But the idea is that once we have these platforms and these algorithms working together, it provides a better experience for the users. And so that goes hand in hand.
So smart platforms, AI is here to stay, definitely. And do you see that the ecosystem, or the players of the ecosystem are getting ready now? Because there is a rush. You know, you've been talking about how quick this needs to be done. When we talked about 5 years, but 5 years comes just like that. Are you seeing that the players are being ready or getting ready?
Well, I mean, I can just repeat what I said before, that we should be one step ahead, right? That it's not implementing and sitting and enjoying, right? It's a constant process, right? Which, yeah, I think.
I'm gonna hand off to you just now. The challenge of getting ready is because the board requires results of the investment made yesterday. They require the results tomorrow. Okay, so that's the challenge of being ready. We all know that we have to be ready. There's a big push towards education, training, at least in the organizations that I'm aware of. But it's a real balancing act between sustaining a current operation for a current client base that has an existing service profile, and then getting ready for the next harvest. It's a bit like you go into the forest, you are you're harvesting, but you are planting at the same time. The challenge is that, if you have an existing tree, a younger one may not be able to grow. So you have to ask for, no, now I need another piece of land and more machinery to plant new seeds while I'm harvesting this. And so that's the balancing act in terms of getting ready.
We go back to the conversation about the investments.
Exactly.
And the choices and the priorities.
I think that we have to keep it simple, because it seems like artificial intelligence is now the sexiest word in everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, and everybody feels like they're doing and applying artificial intelligence to their processes, but this is not new. I mean, it seems like we like to, rebrand the things or, follow specific expressions of the people. Guys, the platforms have been intelligent for a while. I mean, the point, yeah, I mean, it's like they were not done before. They were intelligent. I mean, there were some intelligence and some super good algorithms behind the platforms 1 year ago and 10 years ago. Now, the point, and this is again coming to the investments, is that we have to make them more efficient. And so we have to invest a bit more time and more smart guys thinking about how to recreate the ecosystem. But I don't think that expecting a huge change because there will be some AI applied to the platforms. There is AI in the platforms. Now, what I think is that we're moving into the efficient mode, and that creates a different scenario. And that efficient mode is forced by the return on the investments. So everything is linked somehow.
Can I ask you? I'm sorry. Can I ask him a question? No, you're alone. Yeah.
It's about my Netflix.
No. No, but the question is regarding the. So you said something that I fully agree. Sometimes we masquerade AI with automation. It's more automation than artificial intelligence at the end of the day. But in your opinion, for because of the gap that exists between the people that have the investment power and the people that require the investment power, there's the gap between technology and knowledge, right? They're two different things, but this gap goes in there. What would be the ideal strategy for a country or an entity that requires that investment, has a different set of priorities to appeal to the MNOs, and not the MNOs, but the citizens, the guys that have the ability, have been benefiting from these networks, to make sure that they make the investments in the right area? What would be your strategy?
It's a super interesting question, in my opinion, because, I really love to talk about this. I'm so sorry. I think that I love the free market, but we're talking about strategic investments. So I think that particularly in the digitalization or the investment in connectivity, we need to set some kind of priorities, government by government, and even in the international community, and reconfigure the ecosystem. Because if we the reality is that, Marlene, whenever you go to the board, you're worried about the returns that you're producing. All we know here that the returns will be shrinking. It's a super competitive industry. So it's not the case of Verde Telecom, a company that is clear, and I'm not talking like this because I know about your investment, that you're somehow committed with the country. But if you look at the ecosystem, and if I were a company, why do I have to invest if I'm not getting any return? So I think that definitely we have to open a discussion and try to set some strategies from the governments that may or may not force some specific investments, and may or may not force any specific giant to participate on the investments because they're getting the return. I'm so sorry to come back, but we're talking about an industry that is crucial for the development of any country. We're talking like education. We're talking like healthy system. We need the communication. So we need to readdress somehow. And again, I'm a free market lover, but we're talking about the health of the people, the welfare of the people. So going to direct to the give you an answer, Fabio, I think that we have to start thinking about the participation of the governments and to set some kind of rules in a market that needs to be free, but with some limits. Absolutely, we need to guide it because we're talking about the welfare of the people. It's not anymore that added value. We need the communication. As you said before, we're using the wallet for everything. I mean, the mobile for everything, not just for payments. We educate our kids out of the connectivity. We're talking about education. We're talking about, important matters. And so definitely we have to readdress the ecosystem.
Now that's critical. And this concept of a guided free market may seem very imposing, and sometimes it dissuades or it has a bad connotation whereby it pushes investment away because investors want to be free and understand the clear path to the return on the investment. But it is critical because the investment in the future generations of the African people in the African continent, in particularly in the market that has the most positive growth rates, despite all of the limitations that we may have had. This is the only continent, and then across regions, north to south to north, east to west, there's always positive growth rates in terms of number of subscriptions, increase of bandwidth consumption, adaptation of new technologies, fintech, health tech, and education tech, and even e-governance. This is the only place in the world where currently there is that opportunity for growth. And so that guided freedom of free markets may be something that is important. I just think that the challenge is now to get all of these governments and to think in unison.
I think let me take advantage. We're in Cape Verde, and the first time I've been here, it was in 1999. There was a company called TSV, and it was a public service. Yeah, it could be better or worse, but there was always flights in between the islands. There are some times that we have to think that even if we go to a privatization, we need to keep some public services. And I'm afraid to say that connectivity is a public service. And we have to ensure that any single village, any single person has access to connectivity on an equal way than the others, because this is an universal service. So I think that there is a substantial conversation in between countries. I think that here the African Union has a lot to say, and I think that we can count on the support of the European Union for sure, but also from other institutions
in ITU,
because it's a universal service.
Connectivity.
Yes, just picking up what Javier was saying regarding universal service. Here in Cape Verde, we experience that because we need to bring connectivity even to the rural areas where there is 5,000 people living. We need to give the equal connectivity. So government is it's a crucial piece on this equation to have this investment, this return on investment, something that is going to be able for us to do, because otherwise it's not possible, because we are not going to invest and have no return. We need to invest also to have some return, and that's why there is government participating in all of this ecosystem, because we have to pay for license, we have to pay for SIM card. So all of this has to be, it's a cost that we have. So we have to sit together and see how they can assist us, how they can be with us on board in order for us to invest on everywhere. Because if it's a universal service, we have to do it. And for us to do it and to be effective, to be something that we will do, not because we are obliged to do it, but because we have to bring connectivity everywhere. We need also all the players on this ecosystem to help us.
Including the government.
Yes, it's one of the essential part of this ecosystem.
So
for
there's
sure.
room for rethinking
Yes,
the
for sure.
regulatory framework.
Yes, 100%
around.
agree.
Okay, thank you for that. And before we lose everybody here, because conscious of time, I'd like to turn to the audience. Is that okay, Fabio, that we ask the audience for questions? Yes.
Marlene, that last comment was really quite interesting. So you're talking about governments getting involved in the direction. Do you think the framework of licensing just needs changing?
I'm not saying that it has to change, but it has to be reevaluated, because it cannot be just a cost on us. If we have to give internet as a basic connectivity for everyone, someone has to help us pay this bill at the end of the day. Because yes, license is something that's really an OpEx, really high in our cost of investment, in our dashboards. So we really have to think this together. It's not something that it's only a burden on our side. It has to be, everybody has to contribute
It should be
to
a
that.
partnership, shouldn't it? You know, the government's just saying, give us money, but you're talking about guidance as well. So if all the operators got together and said, actually, you know what, we're not going to pay this until you go down this road.
There is also, I do agree with Marlene 100%, but there is a problem here, which is the technology that the knows themselves they have and the government has. So that's a gap, super important, and that is creating the real issue. Is that if the government is not, let's say, well skilled from a technological perspective, how can you rule? If you're not understanding the players, the game, how can you rule? So it's a matter on, reinforcing the role of the government whenever it comes about regulation. So I do agree. The word is reevaluate, and also empower the governments to reevaluate. Because if they are not able to understand what's going on, it's pretty difficult that they can reevaluate anything.
Just to add on quickly regarding this reevaluation, even from a project, a sustainability point of view, there needs to be reevaluation. I saw in SADC there was a case study of an entity that works for the government, and their mission is to connect rural areas and suburbs. The performance metric there, or the KPIs there, is very different. So they are not evaluated for the income; they are evaluated for the number of subscribers that they get in and the rate at which they grow. Right, and this is the government saying, we understand that we are going to be spending money here. And so what they've done is that they pulled resources from the private sector. Government invited the private sector to participate. We do something similar in Angola Cables with Asleranet. They're invited to participate and share resources in order to reach a specific number of people connected. The key performance indicator there is not the transaction or how many subscriptions have been sold. It's exactly how many people are connected. And the only yellow and red flags that they have is when they start losing subscriptions. And so it's a different way that they have adopted to make sure that the commodity, which is now communications, is democratized to everybody. So that's a shift in mindset, even from a government point of view.
Yes, in complete agreement with most of what you just explained here. I would add the following. There has been a narrative regarding telco industry or the telco operators for so long time, so that people really believe that the telcos of today are the telcos of the past. They can't absorb the idea that the telcos today have problems of money to invest. At that same time, we have a society that has ambitions. They want the best service to everybody. And they're based on that idea created by this narrative that has been for so long time. Okay, so the issue here is, I think the telcos have to do their work and make clear that they don't have that money anymore. And that the type of service that is expected from them to deliver, it's not possible to be done the way it is expected. If we see today, telcos are under a lot of pressure. They don't have money. They have to cope with restrictions that they are made on their investment, ways they have to invest in certain things that they don't need or they don't prioritize at that moment because they don't have conditions to decide themselves which type of investment to do. because that money is not there anymore. So that's the big issue. And COVID-19 just showed us what is the value of the network. And the value of the network has to be put on the top of the table. And someone has to pay for that. When you talk about, you know, the big OTTs and things like that, I don't think that they should pay for that themselves, in straightforward, because they sell a service of themselves. They use the network, but the end user is the one that should pay, in fact, for the infrastructure that, because they are going to get service on the tower. It's a dilemma that we have on hands. But, you know, when you talk about regulations that destroyed the value on telcos, you know, we create all conditions to have, you know, the most competitive type of market. And today you have, you know, the industry imposing changes in technology in a very short cycle. So those companies of the past do not exist anymore. They don't have money to cope with this narrative that is created and people believe today. So to me, the main issue depends on the telcos to make this reality clear to everybody so that the exact conditions should be made available to them.
I do agree, but just to clarify, whenever the last drop in the service of WhatsApp was not WhatsApp, nobody blamed WhatsApp. They blamed the telcos. And I think that we have to admit that this is what we have. This is the narrative, and changing that narrative probably is something that will come with years. Right now, today, we have, as you said, the operators, the MNOs that needs to make investment that are competing in between, because on a normal market, CBT might increase the rate for the whatever use of package of data, but they cannot, because they will be losing subscribers, because there is always a company willing to lose more money than you. That's a fact. So considering this ecosystem, I'm not saying that the OTTs may or may not pay, but they're part of it, because to me, the customer is not the end user. The one taking the service of the infrastructure is the OTT that is selling service, and on top of that, I'm sorry to say that, not paying taxes for that. So there is a lot of things to discuss about these. I'm not blaming anyone, but I think that we need to readdress. This is the reality. All of us, we're in agreement about which is the situation. The point is that probably there is a lack of courage from the governments to address this. Probably because the MNOs are the main investors in medias, probably because who the one wants to block any OTT or make the life of the OTTs worse. So it's super complicated, but I think that we have to include all the actors, and the OTT, I'm sorry to say that, they are actors in this industry.
Yeah.
Minutes already said. Yeah, one last question.
Thank you. I have one question and one possible solution. I will start with the solution for carriers and telco, is what is happening worldwide. It deals with the digital transformation and cloudification of services and infrastructure. Referring to virtualization of network functions to the cloud, lowering your CapEx and also your OpEx. So that's what's happening, I see happening worldwide. And now the question. What are possible business model for incoming data that both can benefit both service provider and media content provider?
That's a very tricky question because, as Javier has indicated, the split is not equal. Okay. Um, and two things were said here that I think are completely aligned with your question. Number one thing that stuck with me is that the money went somewhere else. Okay. We all know where the money went to. And perhaps we don't have the courage to ask for that money. One way to answer the question is if you place an advert in a TV station or a radio station, the company that wants to advertise a specific product pays the TV station. Okay, the TV stations already acquired the license to broadcast in a specific spectrum or frequency, and acquired all the means to make sure that that message reaches its audience, because it has an assured vehicle of delivery that message, it receives it. It's not the same with content anymore, because we've made the investments in terms of making sure that the content is delivered. As I stated, when there's a gap, when there's a fault in the service, we are responsible for it, even though we may not be at fault for it. So the split may become, in my opinion, should not be directly towards the end user, because the end user is the one that drives the adaptation stages. I believe the way you may split it is at the gate. Let's look at Middle East, for example. Middle East has got an interesting model whereby all content that comes into the country goes through a special sort of customs place, right? And then if you really want this content to come into my country, you pay it. It's that simple. Oh, but your client will pay a subscription. Sure, it's fine, but you need to pay to deliver your content into my country. We look at Brazil, for example, what Brazil has done from a regulatory point of view to Twitter, to WhatsApp, to Facebook. It's very important for them to impose and say, listen, if you don't adhere to our norms, if your business will affect our local companies from streaming, from a content perspective, you're not allowed to operate in this country, because they know that the split is not even. So I suggest that the conversation begins at the delivery point, at the points where the content is truly delivered. But we no longer can do that because the OTT is now investing cables. So in the past, we were able to do so. Now they said, nah, you know what? I've got enough. Let me build a cable. Do you want it to be part of it?
Service. Say that to OTT. I think
It's not a popular subject even to have discussed here. But the truth of the matter is that the split is not even. We know this. It's to find the balance between what we've done, what we will continue to do, because between the cable landing station to the end customer, there's a lot of infrastructure still that needs to be managed. There's a lot of licensing regulation that needs to be addressed. There's a lot of training that needs to be done. And the OTTs don't support that part of it. They support the delivery all the way to the main gates to deliver. So I think it's a tricky situation. I think if it were to be, I would address it at the point of entry. But it's something that needs to be discussed because it's very complex.
Yeah, that looks to me the old model of termination of call. Say, but the difference is that on the old model, the call was generated at the origin. Now, if you are going to take a content from any ESP, you are generating the session to go there and bring the content to you. So it's a different scenario. It's a difficult issue. What I say is that the network has a value and it should be paid for the value of the network. And the paradigm that was created until today, making the network looks like plug and play for free, has to be terminated. And people has to find a way to pay for that infrastructure, for that service, in line with all the aspirations of the government of delivering service to everybody in the best way possible. But for sure, network has a value and it has to find resources to finance.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think we are running out of time, right? Kind of. So I mean, yeah, just one minute. Yeah, I think telecommunication was always like a driver of economy, but with the digitalization, it's getting even more, right? So what you rightly said, I think the governments, the ICT regulators should look at it as like strategical investments and government programs. I think this is what it is. And regarding OTTs, I mean, not even looking at the Middle East way. In Africa, OTT is being blocked. People do not say about that out loud, but in many countries, I felt that myself, right? So it's already happening. Like in many countries, OTTs are working via foreign SIMs, via Wi-Fi only, for example. I experienced that many times. So it's, yeah, I think that's also a thing we should.
May I just thanks Cabo Verde Telecom for this audience and for the possibility of discussing about things that matters and that are important. Thank you very much for this time, and of course, thank you very much, Elizabeth and GCCM for the
You're welcome.
opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, all of you.